Have you ever stood at the edge of something new? It could be a new job, a new relationship, a new city, a new dream, and felt excited and terrified at the exact same time. If so, you've already experienced the energy of the fool. Now, before we begin, say hello in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tarot journey so far, then please don't forget to subscribe because we are learning tarot from the very beginning, one card at a time. Also, if you'd like a chance to have one tarot question answered for free, then please subscribe to the channel and send me a message using the details and the number given on the screen. Now let's meet the very first card in the tarot deck, the Fool. Now, despite its name, the Fool isn't foolish, stupid, or careless. In fact, the Fool represents every one of us at the beginning of a new journey. Look closely at the card. We see a young traveler standing near the edge of a cliff. He carries a small bag over his shoulder, a white rose in his hand, and a little dog by his side. Now above him shines a bright sun and behind him are mountains. At first glance, it looks like he's about to walk off the cliff, which is why many beginners think that this card is about recklessness. But there's a deeper story here. Imagine a child taking their first steps, someone starting their first business, or a student leaving home for the first time. They don't know exactly what will happen next. They don't have all the answers, and yet they move forward. That's the Fool. The white rose symbolizes innocence and a pure heart. The small bag suggests that he carries only what he truly needs, and the mountains behind him represent the challenges that lie ahead. The dog is one of my favorite symbols in the card, and some readers see it as protection, loyalty, or intuition walking beside him, and others see it as a warning. It's almost as if the dog is saying that, pay attention where you're going. The bright sun overhead suggests optimism and possibility. And then there's the cliff. The cliff is obviously uncertainty itself. It's that moment when life asks you to take a leap before you know exactly where you'll land. And in the story of tarot, the Fool is the main character. Every other major arcana card represents someone he or she will meet or a lesson that they will learn along the way. The magician will teach him about personal power, the high priestess will teach him intuition, strength will teach him courage, the hermit will teach him wisdom. But before any of those lessons can actually happen, he must first be willing to begin. And that's why the Fool is numbered 0. Not 1, but 0. He stands before the journey, before the lessons, before the transformation. He is pure potential. So when the Fool appears in a reading, it often asks questions such as, where are you being called to trust life a little more? Where are you standing at the edge of a new beginning? What adventure, opportunity, or possibility are you being invited into? Sometimes it can point to starting a new job, moving somewhere new, beginning a new relationship, learning a skill, or simply choosing a different way of living. But the Fool also carries a gentle warning. Faith is important, but so is awareness. Optimism is beautiful, but it should walk hand in hand with wisdom. The card doesn't ask us to jump blindly. It asks us not to let fear stop us from moving at all. And that's why the Fool is powerful. Because every meaningful chapter of our lives begins the same way, with uncertainty. We don't know how the story ends. We don't know what lessons await us. We don't know what challenges we will face. We simply know that we have to take the first step. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of the Fool. You don't need to have everything figured out before you begin. Sometimes all you need is enough courage to take the next step and trust that the path will reveal itself as you walk it. Now, before we finish, let's talk about something that every beginner wants to know, which is, what does the Fool actually mean in a reading? Now, the answer depends on the question being asked. So think of the Fool less as an event and more as an energy. energy of a fresh start, energy of the possibility, and energy of stepping into the unknown. So, if someone asks about love and the Fool appears, then it often suggests a new beginning. It can represent the excitement of a new relationship, opening your heart again after disappointment, or approaching love without carrying the baggage of the past. Sometimes it asks us to stop overthinking and allow ourselves to experience love with curiosity rather than fear. If somebody asks about career, then the Fool can indicate a new opportunity, a new job, a new business, or taking a chance on something that you've never done before. It's the entrepreneur leaving a secure job to follow a dream. It could be a student choosing a new path, or the person saying, I don't know exactly where this will lead, but I feel called to try. If someone asks, what should I do? Then the Fool usually says, begin. Take the first step, make the phone call, submit the application, start the project, or have the conversation. You don't need the entire map before you start walking. And if somebody asks how another person sees them, then the Fool may suggest that they see them as adventurous, spontaneous, optimistic, youthful, free spirited, or somebody who's starting a new chapter in life. If someone asks what challenge they need to overcome, then the Fool can point to fear of the unknown and maybe asking, what would you do if you trusted yourself more? And if the Fool appears as advice, then the message is simple. Don't let the need for certainty stop you from living. Some of the best things in life begin before we feel ready. So think about it. Nobody feels completely ready for their first day of school, their first job, their first relationship, their first business, their first big dream. If we waited until we felt completely prepared, then many beautiful journeys would never really begin. That is the gift of the Fool. Not recklessness, not naivety, but courage to take the first step when the entire path is not yet visible. And in many ways, that's exactly what you're doing right now. You are learning tarot. You don't know every card, every spread, or every symbol, but you are taking the first step, and that's very Fool like indeed. So, in our next lesson, we will continue the Fool's journey and meet the very next card in the tarot deck, which is the Magician. If the Fool represents potential, then the Magician represents action. The Fool stands at the beginning of the path, and the Magician learns how to use the tools that are available to him. And until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and remember that you don't need to have everything figured out before you begin. Until next time, take care and see you.